Good morning, everyone, over in France. It's what's the date? It's 24th of January, and it was pretty cool there yesterday. -4 in Les Sables d'Olonne, and the boys in the office, Seb and Lutz, had no heater. They lost power, so all interesting for them. And here I'm sitting here without a shirt at the moment in Hobart. It's quite mild, so that's pretty cool. It's 7 o'clock in the evening here. And so I did a bit of a storyline before we start into the tracker, because if you look here, I'm just going to tell you some of the things about radios and stuff. You'll see Suhaili is right up high in the bite, okay? And part of that was because back in the good old days in '68, he had a very simple radio, very early HF style radio, and that's actually in the National Maritime Museum in Falmouth at the moment, the original radio he had. He's charging, he lost his main engine. He had a diesel engine, but that wasn't working, and he had a petrol, little single cylinder petrol startup to charge a little Dynastart to charge the batteries enough to get a radio signal out. And at this stage, when he's coming across the bight, he's got no wind vanes at all. They all got smashed up in the Indian Ocean, and he had some pretty severe damage to the boat and all that stuff. So he's trying to let the world know where he is. He's cruising along looking for a ship. And eventually, I mentioned it yesterday, he comes up here into Port Melbourne, or the entrance to Port Melbourne and the heads there, and passes messages over to the pilot boat. So that's sort of part of the reason he was up high. Another interesting snippet on this one is that Suhaili is actually the benchmark for the closing of the gate on the 31st of January. We always said that if you could beat Chichester, if you could beat or stick with Robin, then you deserve to carry on to Cape Horn. And that's, you can see what's going to happen, around about the 31st of January. Robin will line up in, with Hobart. So that's the scenario there. Then the next thing I always promised to do was tell you all about HF radios that the fleet's using now, and in particular the WeatherFax. And in fact, if you get onto Google, Mr. Google will tell you everything. This was just HF SSB marine installations. Just Google the images and you'll get all sorts of interesting ideas on how you install your HF radio, what it does, and bits and pieces. But there's one website that stands out head and shoulders above the rest, and it's this one here. And I'll just click to it, and it's actually called yachtcom.co.uk. So just simply yachtcom.co.uk, and you can see here there's all these subjects. So you want to learn about HF radios and anything at all. They obviously sell stuff as well, but there's a huge amount of information on the types of radios. Oh no, that's just junk advertising because I was buying some other stuff. A huge amount of information on the radios, how it works, how long range skip works, medium frequency, high frequency, SSB. So if a lot of people in Europe don't know about HF radio and the long range stuff. If you're going cruising in the Pacific, you probably do. This will give you the approximate distance that you'll get in good conditions on the frequency. The higher frequency you get, the more range you'll get, but depending on sunshine and if it's darkness and daylight, there's a lot in it, but it's kind of interesting reads. So that's just one of the subjects there. You can get onto installations of your radio, all the drawings and stuff, what's SSB, but I want to just cut straight through to the weather forecasts and broadcasts as well as facsimiles. I haven't been booking holidays. So, okay, so you've got all your coast broadcasts on HF radio. And again, in Europe, most of it's all VHF and Navtex and things like that. But you can see here the frequencies and in the various parts in Europe where it's going. But it actually carries through for the European continent here. It gives you all the different ones in Spain and France and the Palmas, Canaries, Netherlands. You've got all that sort of stuff. You can check out all that. And then we come on to the one that a lot of people are wondering about, which is the WeatherFax broadcast and how that works. So first of all, this is just an example of the UK WeatherFax. And you can download this information through a system that the GGR entrants have got, which is an automatic HF WeatherFax. So it's a receiver. You pre-program the maps that you want. And as soon as the signal comes up, it turns itself on the right time, the right frequencies, and it starts printing out the map on board. Or if you've got a normal computer, you can get a black box and you can just use that as a receiver, and the black box send the signal to your computer, and you can get the WeatherFax maps on your computer screen. And that's all they look like. This is an isobaric map. You can see here's Europe, there's a little island in England there, and it just gives you the basic information of where the highs and lows are, whether the war fronts or occluded fronts, and you got to know a bit about weather then to interpret what's actually going on, and position that, work out the circulation of the wind, and then you've got to estimate your own position, because you usually a few grid lines there, and you say, well, if that's there and I'm just here, sort of thing, that's the wind direction I'm going to get. So there's you still need to know your stuff. It's not just a case of getting the map, looking at it, and getting a forecast like you get grid files. Anyway, this is some of the various countries that are transmitting. So you can see here in Australia is very good on this because we're so big and cover a big area. So Charleville and Wiluna are transmitting on these frequencies for WeatherFax information. And they do them all simultaneously. So depending on, that gives you the different range. If you're close to Australia, you use a lower frequency, but if you're a long way away, you can use a higher frequency, and then they'll give you different maps as well. This was Rio that everyone was complaining about. They're supposed to be transmitting on 12 and 16 megs, but maybe not. Of Canada and North America and everything was transmitting. Japan's usually really good. Russia, they're up there, but there's some in their part of the world. They're known to be pretty good. So that's how you get your frequencies. And then there's even more detailed information that you can get. You can actually get satellite photos that will come off it. They'll give you cloud cover photos, and they'll give you a 12-hour prognosis, 24-hour prognosis. But you've got to know what you're doing when you want to read the map, per se. That's probably enough. Just give you an idea. But just remember that website, yotcom.co.uk. It's got everything you might want to know about anything to do with radios, installations, satellite communications. It's really pretty cool. So back to our original objective, which is the tracker, and I'll just put some grids up here. Oh, come on, get out of the way. Okay, so Guy is still rolling along. In fact, his tweet was really interesting, and his phone conversation was great. I was talking about him yesterday, saying he'll be loving this because it'll be traditional Southern Ocean stuff. I was thinking 5 meters, 6 meter seas, and all from the one direction, which means they get lined up in great big lines of swells and not sort of dangerous, too dangerous. And that's exactly what he said on his phone call. 7 meter seas and really enjoying the rollicking Southern Ocean experience and birds and the whole weather thing. So he's doing 6.1 knots at the moment, and he's getting his money's worth for the Southern Ocean, that's for sure. So let's just see what the cloud's doing. Just interesting to see if it's big ones or just little ones. Yeah, big massive greys. So that's to be expected. Wave heights he's experiencing there, yeah, 5, 6s. So going over 7. White fluffies and everything, and the wind strength is probably, that'll be 30s gusting 35s, 40s, so, but that's a typical day. 35 knots and 3 to 5 meter seas in the Southern Ocean. That's what you get. So he's having a great time. And we'll just roll it forward a bit for tomorrow. That's a fair way into tomorrow. It's backing off a little bit, so he's got pretty much more the same. Go through to the 27th. That's the 3 days ahead. More the same. He's going to be loving this and making good time, but he's still going to cut short. He's not quite going to make to Hobart. So anyway, happy days for Guy. So that's good. And I'm not sure what Jeremy's doing right now. 6.1, but he was doing 7.2 before this position roll over at 8 o'clock this morning, European time. He did average 7.2 knots for the previous 4 hours, which is pretty good, and really nice breeze there, consistent, steady. Ian's doing 6 knots. He's covered 137 nautical miles in the last 24 hours, compared to Jeremy, who's done 155. So Jeremy's clean bottom is making dividends, and as we saw yesterday, they're pretty good, and I think this is going to miss them. So we'll just I'll toggle that through and just see what's going on here. So It's coming down to meet them, but it's opened up a bit. You see, it's gone. There's no red in there. Ian might miss out a bit, and then in fact they're all going to they're going to get a bit of it. They're on the back edge of it, so no dramas for that one. So that's through to the 25th. So that's tomorrow going into the 26th, and then the big one coming behind, dips behind them. So they should be pretty happy with that for the time being. And then another fluffy one. So as this is on the 27th, so 3 days ahead of now. They've got a big high coming across. So and as it's all pretty much the same. Very typical Trans-Tasman crossing. So no surprises, and they should be quite happy. They'll be making reasonably good progress. So now back to Captain Goog, 6 knots, taking it steady, 137 miles in a day. That for him too is the tricky one there is that the wind is close to a south-southwesterly, and he wants to go to the west. So and it's quite boisterous. He'll be getting 35s, maybe gusting 40. So 30 forecast, gusting 40. Reasonably big seas, and to go where he wants, if he wants to go west, he's got to take it on the beam, which would be uncomfortable and not dangerous, but he's got to think about it. So that's why he's heading up a little bit on his course there. So let's just have a look at the cloud cover. It'll be overcast here. So overcast and waves. Yeah, that's pretty solid. He's got 6 metre seas, so it's similar to what Guy's got, but the problem is it's coming more on his beam, and so he's taking it steady there, and he wouldn't be able to drive as fast either. So perfectly safe, but that's what he's there for. This is his Southern Ocean deal as well, and it's a lot better than having raging gales. So let's just move this forward for a day. Let's see what happens. It's backing off, so he's going to get a bit of a respite. He doesn't want to back off too much though, so that's 2 days in. Yeah, it's going to go light, and 3 days in on the 27th. Oh, it's pretty good. I mean, it's going to go soft, but he'll still be doing okay times, so it's not going to hold up progress, and that's going right through for the next 4 days. And if we scan back, it looks like there's no big storms around him. No, there's nothing happening there. So Goog's got pretty much a reasonable week ahead of him. Yeah, pretty good, big high there. So by the time that's happening, it's, boy, I don't even like talking about it, touch wood. The weather's pretty reasonable, eh? So Goog's a happy chappy. And now we'll go back to the main game. Oh, boy, Simon's way out the front still. I'm going to get rid of this, and we'll just kick it up one more. Let's see if we can keep them all on the same thing here. Yep. So Simon is doing 6.1 knots, and he's done 150 nautical miles in the day. Abelish is doing 5.6, and he's only done 65 nautical miles in the day. And Kirsten's doing 6.2, and she's done 91. So Kirsten's closed in a bit on Abelish, and Simon's pulled away a bit on that lot as well. So I'll leave Simon where he is, and we'll just, because they're working 2 distinct weather systems now, and I'll just start rolling this through, see what's going to happen down here. So pretty much nothing, nothing starting to give them a big speed increase. In fact, they're still just drifting along. There goes the first day, and they got the system that went over good catching up here. So that'll give them a bit of a kick. That could be interesting there, but we'll keep an eye on it. I think it'll form up, as we said yesterday, in front of them. I don't think Abelish will catch it because it's they're going slow for one of those days. So 26, I think they'll miss that and be looking okay. And then there's plenty of breeze, but not super fast speeds. They're probably doing 100-mile days there for a few days. So not a great way to try and catch up with Simon. And then for Simon, first of all, let's just see the split here. Let's see the distance between Simon and the others. So we've got between Abelish 1,260 miles. Yep, he's pretty much holding his own, and Kirsten's caught up a bit. It's a bit hard to measure from that one, but Kirsten is about let's say about 100 miles behind, so they're still very much in touch, those two. And let's just take it to Cape Horn, get it down here. So Cape Horn sorted itself out now. 1,600 miles to Cape Horn, so a couple of weeks. And he could move quicker. It just depends on what's happening. So we'll get rid of that and we'll see what Simon is likely to expect now. Coming down this one, I'll blow him up one more. Okay, so we'll toggle that through now, and I'll let it open at the back because that's where the weather's always coming from, the rear end here. So this is about midnight tonight, European time. Then there's 24 hours. He's going slow a bit, so nothing happening there. The 25th, yeah, he's gonna slow up a bit. They might catch up, but they're going slow as well. But there's some quite big holes. Here comes the good one. So this is the 26th. Yep, that's going to impact him. So because he's going to be, that's on the 27th. 4, 5, 6, 7, 3 days ahead. So let's just see. He's not going to go fast for those 3 days. So Simon will probably be around about here. So yeah, he's just going to get a wallop there. So by the look of that, if this forecast holds true, he's going to get hit with this. And that's probably going to be 40 knots gusting 55, maybe even more. Tomorrow I'll pull it up on Windy, and we can actually take readings of what's coming up and how it's going to affect him, and we'll probably put him on alert tomorrow morning just to let him know what's going on. It'll depend entirely, but you can see that generally this is going to sweep down over this area, so it'll be impossible for Simon to get out of the way. He can't go anywhere on that. And we just got to see how the forecast goes. 3 days, anything can happen. It can intensify or it can open up, but this could be one of Simon's first good ones. So we will keep an eye on that and have a good look tomorrow. So that's really about it. And we'll see you over that side of the world. Stay warm, eh? It's nice out here. But anyway, hopefully the boys in the office have got the heater back. And yeah.